Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. Mayor Toni Harp makes New Haven tick. She is the news morning and night. She's here in the WNHH studio for her weekly Mayor Monday checkup on what she and we are up to in the Elm City. Welcome, Mayor Harp.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
So nice to see you. If you have a question for the mayor, please feel free to pop it to us via Facebook Live. You go to the New Haven Independent Facebook page, and you'll see the video right there. And if you're Bob, you know the secret phone number, which is even more secret than the Sally's Pizza phone number. You are welcome to call in. Thanks to Gateway Community College and Bertram Moses PC for providing financial support for today's program. So, Mayor Harp, the bulk of the Academy Awards were past my bedtime last night. But you were telling me that you were able to watch them. How were they? Any surprises? Did your picks win?
Well, you know, I really don't get to go to the movies that much, so I learn more about the movies by watching the sort of shorts that they show before each category. And so, you know, I think that you know, a few years ago it was considered not very sterile and very traditional Hollywood. And this year, it was probably the most diverse Academy Awards that I'd seen ever. So I thought that was really very interesting, and I was, and you know, frankly, happy to see that it was an award show that reflected and looked like America.
And it looked like a lot of the movies in contention play at the Criterion downtown New Haven on Temple Street.
Absolutely, yeah.
I haven't seen Green Book. I guess that one. Right?
I haven't seen it either. Yeah,
I was rooting for two I saw this year that I absolutely love. We don't go to the movies much.
Mm-hmm.
But my daughter made sure we saw I'm Sorry to Bother You, which I thought was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
That was a heavy movie, wild, and Black Panther. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
that was good.
I saw that.
That was a good movie. Did that win anything?
Good. Oh yeah, it won about 2 or 3. Two in costume design.
Oh yeah.
So two behind the scenes and one in set design. It was and two African American women won, both firsts, I think. And so really kind of broke some ceilings there.
And the Beale Street movie, which I didn't love, but I thought the actress was good, she won.
She won. And then, and his name has so many letters in it, honestly. Is it Mahershala Ali? He won again. Second time. So he's he's
the Moonlight guy.
He's the Moonlight guy.
Yeah, Moonlight was quite good.
And he was in Green Book.
Oh.
And he won for that as Best Supporting Actor.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I did think Beale Street was an extremely well done movie. It just
I haven't seen that one
left
either.
me a little cold. But
you know, I don't get time to go to the movies. So.
You're too busy around the city. For instance, you were going to be this morning up in Hartford till the hearing got canceled.
Yeah.
Tweed, New Haven Airport. You know, I'm getting a little deja vu. I think every year around this time we're on the radio and I say, so Mayor Harp, what's up in Hartford? And you say, well, the business community and political leaders are going up to Hartford. We're trying to get that runway lengthened at Tweed. So that's happening again?
It's happening again. We're actually trying to get the runway safety areas paved. So it will ultimately lengthen the runway. But what people don't understand, we're staying inside of the boundary of Tweed. We're not going beyond. So when people think lengthen, they think, you know, it's going to be this huge thing. No, it's going to be within the fence, and it's already unpaved runway safety areas. We're just going to pave them.
And that would make the difference, you're saying, for certain carriers, they would then come and fly out of Tweed if they had a longer paved runway.
Right. I've been told by Tim Larson, who was the executive director of Tweed, that if we just had 6,000 linear feet.
What do we have now, like 48 or something?
We have 5,600.
So it's really only 400 feet.
I know. So we would be able to get a number of carriers who would be interested in coming to New Haven.
And do we need a state law because it means amending the agreement that the state had enshrined previously?
More or less, the state put in the general statute the number 5,600. We just need that taken out.
Okay. And so you'll be up there, or someone will be up there from your administration when the hearing does get resumed.
Oh, absolutely.
So, this is the season with a lot of big things happening at the legislature.
Yep.
And I was looking forward to speaking. I always look forward to speaking to you on Monday. One thing I was looking forward to was to help me understand whether or not, or how New Haven fares in the proposed budget that Ned Lamont announced last week. Now, again, the governor proposes, but then the legislature amends it before it passes.
We always say disposes.
Disposes, right. I always wondered why. I know that rhymes, but I never understood if that was really the right verb. Because disposes means you kind of get rid of it. Oh, that's true. So the idea is you get rid of it. You start from scratch. So how did we do? Do we net, in his proposal, do we net more aid or not?
We netted more aid, but in a way that doesn't really impact taxpayers. So the extra dollars that we got, around $2 million, come in the form of the Alliance grant.
Is that for schools?
It is for schools. It is a special fund, and so we have to apply for it. So it doesn't really count towards looking at offsetting what our...
And is that because, tell me if I remember this correctly, is the Alliance grant when they look at school districts or schools that aren't doing well, and you apply for special money, like grants to improve the climate at a school or to keep a program open later, like at Lincoln Bassett? Is that what I'm thinking of?
Well, that's the Commissioners Network is...
Oh, that's different. Okay.
It's slightly different, but the same. It's like, it's not that you're doing the worst, but you're not doing well enough to move forward without extra funding for certain areas.
But it can't be your base funding. It's like with nonprofits. We're a nonprofit. We go for grants. They never want to give us money just to run the joint. You always have to have some special extra thing you're doing that's a problem they feel they're solving.
Right. And the money they give us to run the joint is educational cost sharing. That actually got cut by $250,000.
Whoa. Yeah. And now...
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's no given that we're going to get that $2 million in the Alliance, and that would help special schools, right?
Well, and that would help schools that are eligible. And it isn't... Well, like, I'm sure that our state delegation would say that because we're considered an Alliance district because of the demographics of our city, we're likely to get the dollars, but we may not get that amount. Mm-hmm. Most of the time we do, but it doesn't offset taxes. Mm-hmm. So it's important for the New Haven Public Schools to get those dollars. I'm sure they need them, but it doesn't have an impact on what you would have to pay if mm-hmm. For your taxes. So that's the difference.
And Macy Andahar is listening. She says, close down drug houses. Thank you very much, Macy. I hope I didn't mispronounce your name. She's in the Hill, I believe, and Rodney Williams in New Hallville is listening. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on Mayor Monday. Mayor Harp, the other big issue. Well, before I get to that other issue in the budget, tell me if I'm understanding this again, because with budget, there's often apples and oranges. The City Board of Ed said we have to make up $30 million, and they have 3 scenarios. I guess we're going to hear more tonight.
No, it was the city. It was the superintendent of schools,
right,
who said that, not the City Board of Ed.
Superintendent last week was proposing her budget, or giving it an advanced look with 3 scenarios, and
right.
She said the one thing that's going to avoid doomsday, like laying off 172 teachers, is if we get another $10 million from the state above what we get.
Right.
So
we didn't get that.
Instead of that, we're getting a cut of $500,000.
Right.
So that's not apples and oranges. They said to avoid doomsday, we needed $10 million extra. The governor, to begin with, is proposing a $500,000 cut.
Not $500,000, a quarter. It's $250,000. It's a little over 250,000, I think.
But so what does that mean? Does that mean it is doomsday? Does it mean there's a chance we'll get more money? Is she wrong? Is it not a choice now that we're going to have to lay off 172 teachers?
Well, I think that's a proposal. It's going to be up to the board to do its due diligence to see whether or not that's the only way to solve the problem.
But we are looking at the doomsday scenario.
That's what she's presenting to the board. I'm not certain that I would agree. We get a lot of grants from the federal government, from other kinds of places. As I looked at her and I've indicated this to her. The biggest problem, there's about a 29, almost $30 million increase due to the 3% raise that the teachers will get. When they first got the raise, it was offset by the TIF grant, the
Teacher Improvement Fund grant.
right. And so
Now it's run out.
we've run out of those dollars, but that was never any more than about 15 million. So I just honestly don't quite understand where the 30 million comes from, where we get that. And so
You'll find out tonight.
so I'm hoping that we will. But what I would really like for her to do is, now that we're getting very close to making our budget proposal, and I really am hoping that we can tie out the general fund and all the special funds, because every teacher and professional that works for New Haven Public Schools is not on the general fund. As a matter of fact, the general fund might be the lower portion of the resources received by New Haven Public Schools. And so what we've really got to see is, are we tying this out to the entire budget and then figuring out from there what the general fund hit would be? Or are we just attributing all of these excess costs to the general fund? And so I've asked if we could get that information and see it tied out. So I'm waiting for that, and I want my fiscal team to take a look at it as well.
I'm reading between the lines. You feel like you're not getting all the answers you want yet from the school administration.
I didn't say that.
What I heard. Let's see what Bob thinks. Bob, you're on with Mayor Monday. How you doing?
Well, it's great, Mayor, that you're talking about the school system, because that's what I was going to ask you about.
Oh.
But
ESP.
now that I've just tuned in, I guess I'll ask follow-up questions. Will possibly any programs be affected, like sports or?
I don't think so. One of the things that we know is that, particularly in some schools, depending upon the number of students that are in the schools, that we have some teachers are required, as I recall, and I could get this wrong, but they have to teach 5 sessions. We have some teachers teaching 2, some 3, some 5, most 5 actually, but we have a number that are not teaching a full load. And so I think that the superintendent wants to right size the New Haven Public Schools so that all teachers are teaching at least 5 sessions. And so,
what does 5 sessions mean? 5 classes a day?
Yeah, 5 classes. And so, and it turns out that is not happening, and that if you just look at numbers, and I'm sure that teachers will say, we can't just look at numbers, we've got to look at other things as well. And that's why I just want us to take a real hard look at this. We've got to make sure that in right sizing, that we don't lose some quality. As it stands now, of all the major cities, our school system's doing the best. And so we don't want to lose that, and we actually want to do even better. So
I think what I'm hearing from Mayor Harp, tell me if I'm wrong, is that you think it's premature to be drawing conclusions about what will or will have to be cut. You feel there are too many unanswered questions about specifics of budgets. You earlier mentioned that we were looking at just the general fund for the Board of Education. There are special funds that actually sometimes pay more teachers than other funds do. And you just think we need a more complete picture before we get to the nitty gritty.
I really think so. And so I'm really hoping that that as we move into this budget process, that there'll be more clarity. I sit by charter as a member of the Board of Education, but I don't ever vote on their budgets, because I will submit to the New Haven Board of Alders and people of the city my budget, and oftentimes it's different than the proposal that.
So you feel that'd be a conflict?
It's a bit of a conflict. Yeah.
Bob, did you have any other questions, buddy?
Yes, I did.
Calling on our secret number, secreter than Sally's.
This was asked of me.
I can't believe you have secrets over here now, Paul.
It's only government needs to be transparent.
Do you believe the city is a mess right now. And I think I asked you this question maybe even last year.
No, I don't think so. I think that
You look at the hold on a minute. You look at the police department, the fire department, the board of ed.
no, I don't think so, Bob. How many times can I tell you no? Absolutely not. We have our police department is one of the best police departments in the country. In the country. Our fire department is one of the best fire departments in our state and has won awards, both of them. So absolutely not, Bob. And, you really ought to look at your own neighborhood to see that, crime, especially violent crime, is down all over the city. We measure it better than we ever had before. And so, and you are one of the smartest people that I know and most observant. And it would seem to me that, you would know that oftentimes change occurs. But that doesn't mean that at the bottom of everything that we do, that you should not be confident in what is going on in our city. It continues to progress. And, and I'm really, frankly, surprised that you would ask such a question.
Well, but I mean, we're in an era. We are. Wait, Bob. We are in an era now.
In the fire department, you have Anthony Campbell resigning in the police.
But he's one out of almost 400 people.
In the board of ed.
Okay.
No, Bob, I don't think that things are. No. I already told you no, and I think if you looked at it, you would agree with me.
I think maybe one issue to step back for a minute,
All right,
folks.
thank you,
No, wait, thank you. I think one issue to step back forward a minute is that we're in an area where there's a lot of reporting. And so you have a big fire department. If somebody gets arrested off duty for domestic violence, that's going to be reported. And it's going to be reported more than they put out a fire last week. Or if the police department, there's always, every big organization, every government, from now on until we die, which I hope is not soon, there are going to be stories every day that people get on social media and on media that are legitimate to report and that always say, here's a problem, a big problem, a small problem. I think this is a question of perception. I think that, you were stepping back, Mayor Harp, and saying, well, let's look at results.
Yeah.
Violent crimes down, historic levels. You feel the fire department is producing results. The average person looking at the media, and maybe I'll take a hit for this too, is going to look at stories that lead with something that's not right.
Well, and I think that sells. That's what sells, and we know that people are interested in things that go wrong. Look, 4,000 people work for the city of New Haven, whether it be on the city side or in New Haven public schools. And they are all kinds of people. Some people, most all of them, I would say the vast majority of them are wonderful people. They do their jobs well. They're committed to this city, whether they live here or not. But every now and then you're going to get a bad apple. And, and it just happens, and it may not even be that the person, his or herself, intends to be that way, but there may be something that has fundamentally upset their life, and they do things that they probably are really ashamed of. That happens, when you have 4,000 people. We so far we've had, like maybe 10 that have had a problem, and it's become in the press. But, by and large, look at how many people go to work every day, do their jobs, do excellent jobs. And really, we have been able to move this city, improve crime. Our fire department, again, is a department that gets awards all over the state, if not this country. And yeah, are we going to have, like 5 or 10, 20 people out of 4,000 that might be outliers? Absolutely, that happens. But by and large, we're a good city with committed employees.
All right, so we're lit up with reactions to this, and I do apologize. I can't read them all, and I don't apologize that I'm not going to read any name-calling ones. John Larico says, let's hear about the raises for personal appointees. The mill rate was taxed last year. Rodney Williams says, what has Bob thought about the state of the city before Mayor Harp's people had nothing to say? So I think we got two sides there.
Well, absolutely. And, honestly, I still say that the employees do a good job on behalf of the people of the city of New Haven, and that we should be proud that they decided to work with us and to serve them. And
one example of that was we had a story of something went wrong when some police officers, sort of beat cops, had mishandled a stop with a guy who was a accused serial rapist. And then, but then there was a story about, in fact, they made a strong case. They now have brought 5 cases as of last week against one man who's going around raping prostitutes. And they have several more coming. And they think that they did a very good job. We detailed the Special Victims Unit, overseen by Renee Forte Dominguez, and then run by, and then there was an officer there, I'm forgetting the names, Leonardo Soto, but a very interesting personal history. We didn't want to get into that story, but some of the challenges he has overcome. And what's interesting about that was that he has built the trust of a lot of the sex workers who are the victims, and they came forward to him with crucial pieces of information that actually caught this guy. One of which was really interesting was a cell phone. This guy was stealing the women's cell phones and then posting pictures. And the woman, and I don't know how this works, but your iCloud gets synced. This woman got a new phone, and she's syncing her photos from her old phone, and up pop pictures of the guy that he'd taken of himself after he stole her phone.
Oh my goodness!
And from there, they went to town.
Right.
And that was just an example of there was a legitimate story that needed to be reported about someone who did wrong, but there was a bigger story about since the East Coast rapist in 2011, the biggest sexual assault case that got cracked by some very good work by caring people at the police department.
No, I think that we have wonderful employees and they work hard, and and it really is unfortunate that oftentimes for, I don't know, maybe political reasons or because people want to just figure out and see what's wrong. Occasionally things do go wrong, but almost everything goes right, and that isn't something that is often lauded enough. And and it's really unfortunate because these people work hard. They are committed to the residents of New Haven.
All right, and we're committed to reminding you that you listen to Mayor Monday on WNHH-FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. We're with Mayor Harp in the house talking about what's up in the city. Mayor Harp, we got sidetracked from the state budget. I didn't want to end it quite yet because I had a couple of other major issues that came up that I really want to get I didn't understand any of that school stuff. You explained it when I tried to look at the chart in the mirror of how you did better or not. And actually, one last thing on that. The proposal is to have cities and towns pay part of the cost for teacher pensions, but they're going to exempt the poorer towns. In the end, are we going to pay?
Well, my understanding is they're not going to exempt. What they're going to do is everybody else pays 25% and we pay 5%.
So how much will that be?
The number that I was given last week was about $183,000.
Okay, so that's not going to materially change the fact that just adds to that almost $250,000 that we would get cut.
Yeah, and honestly, the real problem is it's really the camel's nose under the tent. It's not our bill.
Yeah.
And once we start paying for it, then we are going to be paying for it for probably forever. So
what was your overall take of this budget? It's a pretty interesting budget, but Lamont was really staking out some ground here.
Well, I think that as they say, it's it's he didn't have a lot of time to work on it. I think that he wanted to have he had to have a balanced budget that he presents to the General Assembly, but he wanted to take a balanced approach to municipalities. He didn't want to do major cuts to municipalities, and he didn't. We didn't get cut in terms of dollars. Whether or not they would be useful to writing down taxes is a whole nother question, but he pretty much kept his word, and and it's really the legislature that makes the final decision. And so right now we're kind of in a balanced position. We're
overall,
not any.
Are you okay with it? Like, were you pleased? Were you just
meh? No, I can honestly say that I know that once we start taking on part of the teacher retirement debt for a system that was created by others, not cities, that creates a problem. We don't get to set actuarial assumptions or understand why they were set. We don't get to make a decision about what the contribution is going to be for teachers. There are a number of things that we don't get to do except pay, and that's troubling.
So you don't like the teacher proposal? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll get to that one at all. Thank you, Harry. Jeff Klaus has a comment. Thank you, Jeff. He watches on, there's something called Periscope. I've never heard of Periscope.
Oh, I don't.
Harry
I don't
Drost,
even
our
see
station
the-
manager, gets us showing all these different platforms and people live in different places.
Oh, okay.
So Jeff Klaus wrote in a Periscope, separate tax bills. City should issue one and Board of Ed issue its own. That's an interesting idea. We are now starting to elect some of our Board of Ed members.
Oh, that
Jeff
would be
Klaus,
interesting.
thank you for listening for your question. What do you think of that idea?
That's a different one. It hadn't occurred to me, but it's something certainly to think about.
All right. I'm sorry I took you now off track. So the teacher retirement provision you don't like. Sounds like you felt that overall, if I'm not putting words in your mouth, Ned Lamont tried to be fair to cities overall.
I think overall he did.
And what about pilot? That's always our big one, right? No one
We
talked
got
about pilot last
nothing.
week.
Nothing.
Meaning they're going to keep it at the current level?
They're keeping it at the current level. There was a 0 increase, but thankfully there wasn't a decrease like there was last year.
So were you relieved or were you kind of hoping you get an increase?
No, we need an increase. Absolutely. It costs more money to run the city. And the interesting thing that we discovered since I've been mayor, the amount of tax exempt property has gone up about 5% than we had. When we do our budget, we have
Over what time?
Over about 5 years. So maybe 1% a year. But
To what? To 54?
It's 55. But then when
Oh.
we looked at it this year, we had our assessor look at it. It's now up to 56.
Oh.
And so I'm very concerned that if the legislature and the governor don't think pilot's important, it hurts us disproportionately because we carry the largest amount of tax exempt property in the state.
So I'm going to try to summarize, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell me if this is accurate. Mayor Tony Harp says overall, she felt that Ned Lamont's budget strove to be fair to cities.
Yep.
That you have some concerns about specifics. There was the education fund is actually a slight decrease. The teacher retirement, I think, is an unfair burden that could grow. You wish we need a pilot increase, but you're at least relieved it didn't decrease, but you'd like to see the legislature increase it, which might be a Hail Mary. And
you think?
and the last one I didn't ask you about was sugary. Oh, two things. So he doesn't want to raise the tax on the wealthy. There's a proposal that if you earn over $500,000 single, million, if you're a couple or more, that you would pay what New York pays or close to it. Now it's a 6.99% top rate. The proposal from Robin Porter and Josh Elliott's and others is that the marginal tax, you don't pay any more on the first $500,000 or million, but after that you would pay what New York pays, something like 8 or 9%. What's your feeling on that?
No, I would support that.
And that's not in the because
it's
Lamont's
fair,
budget was
yeah.
really nice to the rich.
Well,
He's
you wonder
supporting.
why.
He's open to getting rid of the estate tax. What's your take on that one?
Well, a lot of people
You saw my
believe,
bias and how I asked the question.
a lot of people believe that the estate tax is why we're losing rich people to states like Florida, and I don't know if and there may be some truth to that, but if you my feeling is if you want to reduce the estate tax, then you have to balance it by increasing something else.
But also, we're going to lose those people anyway if we try to compete with Florida to have no taxes. We also lose rich people to Massachusetts and New York, which taxes them as much or more.
Yeah.
So they lead with investing more in tech and infrastructure. End of sermon.
Okay. Well, I mean, I certainly understand your I understand your point, but I mean, if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times that the estate tax is what's driving people out of Connecticut.
But I don't know if it's based by, it's
I don't
supported
think
by
it's
the
rational.
facts. Yeah, I don't even it's supported by the facts. I don't know that we've had this big outflux of rich people. A few people left and they carried a lot of money with them, but other people came in.
And you know what
And
I
they didn't all leave
understood
for Florida.
at the time was that a lot of people who go to Florida go while they're healthy and older, but they come back here when they're less healthy and need the kind of services, medical and health services that are provided in the state.
So when the gator bites them, they come back in.
Yeah, they got to have that addressed.
What about the sugary drinks? That's a really interesting debate because you can't always predict who's going to be on what side. He wants to tax another cent, for an ounce of sugar, these added sugar drinks that are getting everyone obese. Some people say, who advocate for the poor, like Robin Porter, says that's another tax on the poor. We do need to address obesity by having more choices in neighborhood bodegas and education. Others, like Josh Elliott, says he's on the fence because he does feel like it is a problem. And some of the research shows that these taxes do lead to healthier people.
Well, I think it's a choice. If people want to drink sugary drinks and recognize that they're really bad for you, they ultimately contribute. And a lot of the sugar that's in our food. It's not just the sugary drinks, but in processed food contribute to diabetes.
I realized I was buying the $1 ramen noodle at the health food store,
Hmm.
and half of those have sugar.
Oh
You have
yeah.
to look real closely to get the ones that don't have sugar in the miso ramen healthy thing.
And I am someone who really believes that they really ought to be banned. Honestly, I think look in New Haven and in certain of our communities, there is so much diabetes, and diabetes of really young kids, like at 5 years old, type 2 diabetes. It was unheard of in my generation.
So you're
And
saying
now,
you'd rather ban than tax?
no, I'm saying that it's probably likely not to be banned. Um, and so I think if that's the case, then we ought to tax. We ought to do something to raise the level of concern. That's what we did with cigarettes. It reduced the consumption, and then I don't think anybody would say that drinking a sugary drink is actually good for you. And and we know that obesity and increased fat is really bad for you, and it contributes to other illnesses, not the least of which is diabetes, which is a scourge in many of our communities.
Interesting. And then New Haven got a bounce of Sailor Mascara. Did I say her name right? Sheila? Sheila?
Yeah, I think you said it right.
Which one is it?
I don't know. Say it
Okay,
again.
Sheila. Yeah, Sheila or Saila?
Seela, yeah.
Sailor
That's it.
Mascara, who's run NeighborWorks, had several names. The organization, same organization doing affordable housing in Fairhaven, The Hill, and other neighborhoods for years in New Haven. Lamont picked her, Governor Lamont, as the new housing
Yeah,
commissioner,
that's great for
which is good for city. At the same time, they announced there's going to be a lot less money for affordable housing, and a lot of the Harper administration's strategy for dealing with affordable housing is when people want to build market rate projects, we ask them in return for approvals to get 20% or more affordable housing, and we get state grants or sometimes federal grants distributed through the state to support that. Is that going to be in danger now, or does having that commissioner give us an inside track on what's left?
Well, I honestly don't know if it gives us an inside track because she's going to have to look at the whole
It
state.
probably has boards that
But at least
review
we can.
everything.
She might return a phone call to people that she's worked with for years. We can only hope that she does that. I think that everyone knows that Connecticut has a problem with affordable housing, and that it's only largely happened in our big cities. And I'm hoping that to the degree that we still want to build affordable housing, that we find the resources from the state and the federal government, frankly, so that we can do that. Because otherwise, where will the workers live?
And we are building some.
We
I mean,
are.
like
We've done a lot,
and the
actually.
project is going up in the Hill. I believe it's at least 20% or 30%. The one that's Randy Salvatore is building
Yep.
on that vacant land. That was 11.5 acres.
And the Schiff organization is going to be building affordable housing on Route 34. So
What's the Schiff organization?
it's
Oh,
the
that's that project you had away at the end.
yeah. Mhm.
That's right. You got criticized for that one because you made it all affordable housing. Well, no, but not laughing. I do believe the affordable housing question. It's impossible to make a decision without half the people being upset.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, there's a very legitimate desire for more affordable housing and having the government find a way to promote that. And on the other hand, people want taxes down, they want the tax base built up, and they want market rate housing. So you really, that's part of being an adult and being in public office. You're going to make decisions, and some people aren't going to like it because you can't make the decision that everybody likes.
Now, once you make a decision, you're going to have a number of people that are for it, a number of people that are against it, a number of different ways. And you just have to do what you think is best for the city and the people who live in the city.
And it's amazing how this market rate housing boom in rentals continues. Last week, I don't know if you noticed, in 2 days there were $21 million of sales of market rate and sort of middle. It's not all rich people. It's like sort of middle income apartment buildings. 100 House Street. You know that big building?
Oh yeah,
So I
I
guess
live
you
around the corner from there.
and so you used to be campaigning there probably when you went at Alder.
Right.
Back then, I remember when I was in college, a little before that, I remember campaigning there. It was a pretty beat building, run down those days in the 70s and 80s. And in the last time this building sold, Mayor Hart, it sold for $10, not $10,000. Not 10 million, $10. Okay, it's a big building. It sold last week for $11 million.
Well, it's
With the
certainly.
surrounding property, which I think they're probably going to come to you with a proposal in coming days. There's this group that has Mexico and New York holdings. They bought all that, some surrounding property for a total of $15 million right there on the block at 100 Howe near Edgewood. So there's a parking lot I'm guessing they want to build on. And then the day before that, on Whitney Avenue, there are 2 apartment complexes that have been owned since the 80s. Last time they sold combined for $700,000. They sold combined for over $6 million last week. And Jacob and Joseph Feldman, who I think been doing a pretty good job with mod equities for sort of like middle rate housing, they bought them last week. So there was an interesting comment about this in the Independent. It was a suggestion to you guys. They said these sales, someone did the homework we didn't do. They looked up what these houses are assessed for, these buildings, and they're assessed for half of what they sold for, which I guess people take a gamble when they buy sometimes. They think that it's going to continue to increase in value. They were suggesting that maybe, they say that when single-family houses are selling, this person claimed, they're selling for about what they're assessed for. But these bigger apartment complexes are selling for double, and that there might be an opportunity for the city to relook at those assessments and maybe get more tax revenue.
That's a good point. I will talk to our
It's way beyond
director of assessment and have him take a look at it. It's a really good point.
It's way beyond my expertise base because I don't know how many years you're allowed to do that, if you're allowed to single out certain kinds. There are rules governing this kind of stuff.
I think every 5 years you have to
everything
to reassess everything.
Right, and every 10 years you show up in person. And 5 years electronic based on comparables.
And they basically will be taking a look, at least in the next couple of years, at sales for, and so it probably won't be long that there'll be an increase in value on these properties.
All right, so the lot of stuff happening in New Haven. We're talking about that on Mayor Monday with Mayor Tony Harp. There was a big Yale event last week. Yale unions. They were saying that Yale had promised 1,000 jobs they were going to create by this April for New Haven people, and that half would go to people in low-income neighborhoods. Yale's the person now, you never know who's sort of in charge of New Haven for Yale anymore with Bruce Alexander gone.
Yeah, I know.
They haven't really signed anyone. I'm getting the feeling that actually the portfolio has been downgraded. But in any case, I don't know if there really is somebody who's like making things happen in New Haven. I know people work on stuff very hard, like Lauren Zuckerman, but there's no like vice president who's doing what Bruce Alexander did. But Janet Linder showed up. She's an official there. Used to be at City Hall. Very nice woman. Yep. She said, we're meeting the numbers. We're pretty close. We're a little over in some ways, a little under in others. And the Yale unions brought a big crowd to City Hall saying you're not coming close because you're counting jobs that shouldn't count. You're counting people who have construction jobs already who get brought on to work on a job and then some other job. You're counting PhDs who are here for a couple of years. You're counting casual labor. People have temporary jobs, but those aren't long-term permanent jobs. Any thoughts on this or where that's going?
Well, I think that it's a good goal to have people in our most challenged neighborhoods have access to jobs. And so I laud the unions for that. I haven't taken a look, frankly, at the allegations that the union has and the statements that Yale has that they're close. So I'd like to really spend some more time thinking about it. I do know that if we do have jobs in our city, we'd like to make sure that people have health care, that they are not just temporary jobs, but
a permanent job at Yale is kind of the gold standard.
Right.
Good health care.
Is what we would really like to see happen for all of our residents. And so I think those are good goals. I haven't really looked at the scorecard.
All right. So I have a free proposal for the next big ask at Yale from the city.
What's that?
Because remember they did like every bunch of years. They did the Promise in New Haven 2009. I don't think they've done any major initiatives since 2009.
Right.
Right now you have a dilemma with the police department. You're in arbitration about a contract.
Mm-hmm.
And you would like to pay them more, but at the size of the force we have, can't afford to. And cops are being poached by departments that pay a lot more, and we probably never could match that.
Right.
What if Yale agreed to include New Haven cops in its city home buyer program where you get 5 years, but make it 7, where you get down payment assistance as long as you stay there?
Oh, that's
get
an
it
interesting
forgiven.
one. I like that.
It's not a huge ticket item for Yale.
Nope.
They could use a little good PR about the city right now. I just think.
I think they could use a lot of it.
Yours for free if you want it.
All right.
How are those negotiations coming? There was some thought about whether they're going to suspend arbitration and try to have some deal to pay cops more, or is that not in the works?
I honestly haven't. I think it's still in arbitration. No one has come to me or my staff and asked that those be suspended. It would require both sides doing it. I think we didn't want to go to arbitration in the first place. So, we would certainly be interested in that if that's what they would like to do. But they would have to want to do that.
All right. And what about Board of Ed? Liam Brennan, you appointed 2 people to Board of Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Yasina is going to be heard tonight, and I'm guessing that's going to go swimmingly because all these people who fought your last appointment are in favor of her.
Well, that's
So I
good
don't
to
think
hear.
there's going to be pressure. Yeah, even New Haven Public Schools Advocates, a parent group, they were very much against your last appointee, Jamel Cotto. They've issued a statement in favor of this person,
Oh, good.
which I haven't heard any criticism of her either. Liam
Mhm.
Brennan was your other pick, but now he's changed his mind. He said, oops, I'm taking a new job, Veteran Legal Affairs. And so our lead last week was Liam Brennan is not running for mayor and he's not going to serve on the school board. He's kind of like watching these ideas float by. So who else?
Yeah.
Do you have someone in next?
I'm talking to someone and waiting to hear whether or not he's interested. And hopefully by the end of the day, we'll make an appointment.
You could announce it here and we just won't tell anybody. You want to wait to find out if the person says yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough, although you're still allowed to.
Okay.
If you ever want to do that. Jimmy Wang. So we were on our high horse about Jimmy Wang last week. This has nothing to do with decisions you make. Wooster Square. There's a coffee shop. It used to be called Fuel Coffee Shop. It's across from
No, I like that.
Conti School.
Mm-hmm.
An immigrant named Jimmy Wang bought the whole building.
Okay.
And he wants to open a new coffee shop. And he wants to put in big windows. He thinks big windows and make the coffee shop. He wants to put in a new roof. He's investing $50,000. It's in an historic district. So to do anything there, you have to get the approval of the Historic District Commission. What I call the freeze everything at one moment in time that you decided is when history was and nothing else can change. That's my take on it. So they keep telling him no. He comes back every month very politely saying, I really want to open this thing. Now you've got me paying $50,000. And their idea is saying the roof should slant the way that some other roofs slant on that block. See, when he bought it, someone put an ugly addition on it where the coffee shop is. He wants to make it less ugly, but he didn't put that ugly addition up. And they say you can't have big windows because other places nearby have small windows. And right across the street is Conti School, which looks absolutely nothing like the rest of the neighborhood, right? The rest of the neighborhood might be 1800s, early 1900s, and that had that one architecture, which is lovely. And then across the street, you have something built in the 50s and 60s, which is completely different. And this poor guy is, you see where I'm standing?
Yeah.
He's getting the tab pulled up for what I think is one very specific and not necessarily scientific or for the social good reason. Any thoughts on that?
I really, I think I think you make an interesting point. And I'm hopeful that the Historic Commission has heard you and will take it into consideration.
It actually got me thinking about 2 issues you and I think about a lot. You know how when you follow New Haven for a long time, your mind changes a little bit and your ideas evolve? That's one thing I love about studying New Haven. I felt like every political theory you can bring plays out in real life here, and it kind of makes you realize everybody kind of has something right and wrong, because I could be wrong about this. I get my mind changed. I think about, like, how do we preserve history? So I think about the way Harvey Koisem and others invested in Wooster Square because those were beautiful buildings and kept them that way and added value by doing them historically, the St. Joseph Guest House. I think about how in the 50s and 60s in urban renewal, there were a lot of Italian immigrants who were literally keeping all their cash under their bed. And Rosa DeLauro's father, Ted, who was considered the mayor of Wooster Square, went around with urban renewal architects and said, we had an idea how this house could be preserved. And if you invest your money, we'll match your money. And then that's why we have those beautiful old ship captains places on Court Street and the other buildings. But I think when you force people to do things a certain way about what you think history is, it actually ignores the way that historical beauty evolves. So a lot of what looks nice in the square was created by these very talented Italian-American immigrants who were Masons and others who came to build Yale. But they brought their own ideas, and it wasn't frozen in time from what Wooster Square was 50 years before that. And now you have a new immigrant who has another idea about how to make this coffee shop nice and is being thwarted by people who want it to look exactly the way it looked a certain way at one time. And I'm wondering whether the free market might. There's so many ways that government solves problems better, protecting our health, safety, not letting people cheat you or rob you or pollute. But I don't know if government's the right way to set standards for what looks good and historic. I wonder whether people's individual decisions of where they invest their money and where they think the market goes is what helps a district evolve in an interesting way.
Well, I do think that we don't want to. I think there's a concern that in another generation or two, and it certainly won't happen here, but I've seen where it has happened. There's future shock that there's no real connection with the city to its past, and I do think it's important to physically have that, and that certainly we've got a lot of it, and but I do think that there could be flexibility too.
Right, we look at I-91 and how they destroyed part of Worcester Square. We don't like the way, right? Most of us have the consensus that it was a mistake of the history we tore down by government in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when people look at the Jane Jacobs alternative, it wasn't really that every building had to have a story on the first floor and 2 apartments above it, although that's very nice. It was more that planners don't always know on a large scale what's best, that individuals, when they make their decisions about what's going to work in their community, add up to a fabric.
And I think you make a good point about one store, but or one retail space, and honestly, to be perfectly honest, because I went there when it was Fuel, and I wondered why those windows were so small.
That's where I'm with you. That's where I'm with you. So did Jimmy Wang, because he has to pay the bills. He doesn't want his coffee shop to go out of business the way Fuel did.
So but yeah. So I don't. As I recall, the building, it isn't like the mansions, like in Worcester Square. It really isn't. So I don't know. So I'm with you.
But I'm also with you. I see your point. But you're also saying don't throw away the larger goal of preserving our history.
Absolutely not, because you can go to places, and I know this is a political hot potato, but I went to China. I saw Beijing and some of these places, and there is no hint of the oldest culture in the world there anymore. That's troubling.
Yeah. All right. That's why I say, honestly, I meant it sincerely. That's what I love about studying New Haven, is that our ideas evolve over time, and the answers aren't simple. And all those great discussions: how do you preserve history? How do you build community? How do you police? We kind of evolve. But how do you set up retail? It's all great stuff. Okay, we got more comments here. The rich are leaving, says Jeff Clowes. I am not rich, but I work with them. It's the future taxes that are driving them. Yes, we are a healthcare tourist destination. Right on. Jeff Clowes, thanks so much for listening to Dateline New Haven Mayor Monday. We only have a few minutes left, but I did want to ask you about a meeting you had with Connecticut Conference of Municipalities last week. What was the upshot of that? I guess there was a lot to be discussed, given that the fate of cities is hanging in Hartford's balance.
Well, I think that there, Ryan Drasowitz, I probably didn't pronounce his name, the chief of staff for Governor Lamont was there. And, he basically talked somewhat about the budget and about wanting to have a good relationship with municipalities across the state. And that the thing that I thought was really interesting, they wanted to distinguish themselves in their administration as an administration that had an open door policy to mayors throughout the state. And so I thought that was positive. They basically said they don't have all the answers, and they want to talk to as many people and get a sense of issues. I of course complained about the pilot, and Mr. Drasowitz said he would meet with me about it. The chief of staff, Ryan.
The hedge fund guy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But he also worked for Chris Dodd. So,
that's right.
He's a government guy too.
That's right. Good point.
And so I think everyone appreciated the fact that the Lamont administration really worked very hard not to hurt any one segment of our different types of municipalities in the state.
I think that pro or con, I think we have some serious work going on in Hartford.
Yeah, they're working hard.
You guys are really engaging on some very important issues, not drama, not personality driven. You're really trying to solve the problems.
And
That's the feeling I get.
and I think they really want
You
us-
and they. I mean, like in how you're interacting with each other.
right us all to sort of work together. They don't believe they have all of the answers, and they want to hear from folks. So they will be hearing from us.
All right. I was about to read a really lovely comment from Tabisa, but okay. Tabisa, do you know Tabisa, Rich? She's from South Africa, great musician. She lives in Westville now.
Oh,
Her
okay.
career has been taken off. She's one of our favorites here at
Oh,
WNHH.
okay.
She just said this is her first. She listens a lot to the station. We have her on a lot playing her music. She has a concert, I believe, this weekend coming to
Okay.
Carolina. I always say that wrong. Carolina. It's my first time hearing our mayor. I'm all for what she's saying. Beautiful mayor, want to come see us perform this week? Okay.
Okay, I'll try.
Arts and You're eating lunch with Roseanne Cash or people who like Roseanne Cash?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, we do it every year. They give an award out.
Who's they?
The International Festival of Arts and Ideas, and so they will be giving out their award this year, and it's always a wonderful event.
Is Roseanne Cash going to be there?
I believe so. Yeah, she's getting the award.
And she also going to perform this summer, or did she perform last summer? I forget.
I don't remember. I don't remember her performing last summer, so it may be this summer.
And so there's going to be a luncheon for arts and ideas.
Mhm.
Oh, that's right. They do always give some big shot,
Yeah.
some big thing, yeah,
Yeah.
to kind of get people thinking about the festival 6 months before.
They do, yeah.
All right. Well, Mayor Harp, thanks so much for coming in. Thanks, everybody, for your comments that you all left. And as I said, I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of them, but I'm not sorry that we do have a policy of we don't read nasty stuff on the air. Tabiza, it was great to hear from you, Jeff Klaus, Macy, Rodney Williams, and the gang. We're going to take it out. Oh, and thank you also to Gateway Community College, Bertram Moses PC, for providing financial support. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.